Hello, everyone, and welcome to NINJAGOcast. I am your Sensei Wolf,
I'm LJ.
I'm Mesa.
I'm Sakota.
and today we've got a really special podcast for you all today. As you can tell, you can see our faces, which is a little different, but we also have a couple of new faces or very familiar faces if you're a Ninjago fan. I'd like to introduce you to Tommy Andreasen. You probably already know the man, the myth, the legend, and also the two composers who worked on Ninjago for its entire run, Michael Kramer and Jay Vincent. Say hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you
So
again.
excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. This is truly a treat. So today we're going to be talking about the very unique video series that went on Lego's YouTube channel at the start of this year. Every once in a while there'd be an update to it. But if you're a fan of the Ninjago, of Ninjago's music, then this is the video series for you. It is called the Ninjago Musical Journey. And we're going to be talking about what that is, how that came to be with the group that made it happen. So yeah, that is what we're doing today. But first, well, how's everyone doing? Let's do a little icebreaker. How's life?
I'm
Yeah,
tired.
feeling great.
Feeling good?
Excited to talk music. We're really grateful that you guys, took time out to talk about the music side of the show. We're really grateful. Thank you.
I'm grateful you guys are joining us today. It's gonna be a fun time. I feel like I'm gonna learn a lot. The Ninjago documentary was already a wonderful vision into what you guys do, and it's like magic to those who aren't inclined musically. You guys are geniuses. Geniuses.
Well, one of my favorite quotes, I think it was Steve Martin who said it. It was like, talking about music is like dancing about architecture.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
So we'll try to live up to that today.
There's gonna be lots of awkward. It's kind of like this. It's hard to describe, but sure, let's go with it. There's gonna be lots of weird analogies, probably coming from me.
I'm gonna say stuff like I know what I'm talking about, like crescendo. No, but I think it's some sort of, I don't know, frosting for an ice cream or something like that. But I've heard it in music.
Nailed it, Tommy.
But story-based music is the easiest to talk about for sure. Because even if people don't, understand all the instruments and all the, lovely Italian terms that our piano teachers taught us when we were little, we can still talk about what you're supposed to be thinking, what you're supposed to be feeling, and why. And it's a testament to Ninjago's enduring appeal, not just for people who watch the show, but for us who work on the show. Like we're on year 11, like 11 and a half at this point. And no, wait, it's August. Next month, it's going to be 11 years for us. Like 11, we'll be going on into year 12. And we still love talking about the music. We still love making it. I mean, just because the property is just so special. So we are, we're getting older. We're getting older, but I'd like to think we're not burning out because the show has that much more to say.
Yeah, and I think we actually had our music quick kickoff for 2022 just like a month and a half ago.
Oh, so you guys are busy.
Yeah, we're going into.
What's
All
that?
right.
Ninjago 2022 confirmed.
Oh my goodness.
Dang, only on
Well-
NINJAGOcast.
Well, instead of looking to the future, we're going to go into the past, way back to like 2011 to 2021. We've got the 10th anniversary special for music. Did I say that right? LJ was looking like I said that wrong.
You look into the past, 2011 to 2021. We're in 2021. 2021 is the present.
Fair. I don't know what I'm talking. I'm tired. But so we're gonna be talking about the sort of dedication to the composers and to the music for Ninjago with the musical journey, and I believe the idea belongs to Tommy.
Oh yes. Totally. Shout out to Tommy for making this happen. He was the champion from the get-go. He's always had our back and been an Uber fan and really supported us from the get-go and gave us so much creative rope, probably too much. um, but he was such a believer in what we were doing, and a believer in this music that he wanted to get it out there. And it was for Jay and I, it was, you know, kind of looking at the project as a whole when it first got going. It was pretty daunting. I don't know if it was for you, Jay, but it was for me. It was like, this is how many years of music that we have to try to compile into something that makes sense, because it's like a lifetime. It's feels like a, you know, a whole career of music to try to, you know, package in one thing. And it felt overwhelming. But kudos to Tommy for believing in it, giving us all the support to make it happen.
This was a project that was on and off for a while. You know, it was like, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? Because as you know, probably know, Lego's doing all right. But that doesn't mean that money is just lying around. There's a time to ask for money, and if you miss that window, then you kind of, then you're screwed. And this idea kind of came up in the last minute. Actually, the idea first came up in April last year when the pandemic hit and everything was starting going into lockdown. And we were actually kind of freaking out a bit because that probably also meant that our studios were closing down. So we were kind of pitching ideas on how to make some sort of substantial content out of, you know, very little. So what could we do? And that's really where the genesis of the idea of the musical journey came out. So April in 2020, it didn't really go anywhere. But then, you know, as we were going towards the 10th anniversary, and I was looking at, you know, what are we coming out with? I kept feeling that we missed like a big sizable chunk of something. So that's why I kept kind of, you know, massaging this idea of the musical journey in, and you know, trying to figure out if we could actually raise the money to do this project, because obviously there's some work going into it for you guys, and there's something about rights, and we would need Haley to do it as well. You know, but it was, I'm rambling on about, but the whole project was kind of always on the verge of just collapsing on itself, because one, we needed a bit of money to do it. Two, if we didn't have Haley to do it, it just wouldn't be done, because obviously you can't just give this to any old editor and say, hey, can you really look at these 50 hours of footage and find the greatest emotional moments? No, this is something that you have to kind of know by heart, and then, you know, also know the music to some extent, and, you know, be able to put it together. It's like probably a monumental task. So it was always kind of on the verge of just collapsing on itself. Do we have the money? Don't we have the money? Can we do it in time? Can everyone just please come together, and can we actually make this work? So it was a bit of a stressful process to get it going.
I mean, it was a daunting project just in its idea phase. It was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
The gold medal goes to Tommy, you know, for the kickstarting the idea, but the silver medal, you know, we're in Olympics now, definitely goes to Haley. As Tommy said, I don't think there's anyone on the planet besides you who could have pulled this off in terms of having the show knowledge and then the technical skill to be able to go through every episode and know exactly which moment lined up with each visual moment goes with each musical moment, and then sometimes we do things out of order, and you would have to make it work, you know, with chronology totally like thrown in a blender. It was an unbelievable feat that you pulled off. So silver medal goes to Haley.
I think as important as all that stuff was, like, you know, having an emotional connection to the material as well, because this couldn't be a hack job. It really needed to be able to, you know, the images needed to support the music. Mm-hmm. So it really was something where you you really had to know the material really well to make this work.
If we're passing around medals, then the titanium medal, the greatest of them all, will go to the composers for creating the music that will last a decade, but is still connective enough to, like, you get the importance of Zayn's theme from 2011 and it carries on to 2020. Every moment has like a musical impact, and I mean that's the reason why I got into the soundtrack in the first place. I was like, there's something here. Like you listen to every scene and you can hear it in the background. It's not like, you know, a throwaway track that they reuse over and over and over again, like every single season. You're like, oh, here's the same track again. It's everything matters musically, and because of that, and I'm not the only fan that you know captured the hearts of. You know, there's so many other fans out there that, you know, love breaking down the Ninjago soundtrack because there is something to be broken down, and that, you know, that in itself deserves the titanium medal. And that's why I truly think this was, you know, an idea in the first place, because there's a journey that can be seen musically, and that if that can be made for something that it didn't really, you know, originally need it. It's an animated show, just all sets, and here we go. Like, it's all the emotions, all the adventure is still there. It's truly an amazing feat.
We're passing out medals. Where's Wild Brain and Will Films medal?
Listen, Meso.
Exactly, and we can just pass this all around. I mean, you know, we're going back to not only the music itself, but also the practical making of the musical journey project. I mean, Jeppe Rittervold shares our medal with us for sure. You know, he's the musical director. He wrote The Weekend Whip. He found us. He found us. He made this whole thing happen. He's always been a great champion. He's an amazing musician and songwriter and singer, Royal Blacksmiths and everything like that, in his own right. And whenever we're doing things like this, you know, he always goes to bat for us. He always tries to, you know, make it the best situation for us as he can. And I know that he worked closely with Tommy and Lego at sort of bringing this all about, and was very flexible with the many changes that it brought about. I mean, yeah, you know, Tommy, this definitely was Tommy's idea, and I remember he first emailed us, and not to make comparisons, but it was almost kind of like, you know, how the Lord of the Rings trilogy was originally pitched to New Line as one movie. And then it ended up being three 3+ hour movies, but then that wasn't even enough. Then you had to get the extended editions and all that stuff. So Kramer and I were kind of like New Line when, you know, so Tommy says, hey, how about you just do, you know, 10 years of Ninjago music, maybe, you know, one or two tracks per season, maybe one piece per season, and then you go to the next one, and we were thinking, okay, we can do that, and I'm sure it would be, you know, very, very nice. But if the goal is to really go on a journey of the whole thing, I mean, it's we ran into the Lord of the Rings problem. Not that I'm comparing, you know, quality or impact, but just the sheer volume of material, the sheer volume of story elements. You can't tell the story of Ninjago with 2 themes, or with 10, or I would argue with 20. You know, you have it's the story keeps on expanding and deepening. That in order to really encompass that whole journey, you gotta go with as much as you can. And that's not saying we didn't cut things out. We tried to be as Spartan as we possibly could, and we still wound up with almost 3 hours of stuff.
I mean, it was. So an idea was pitched, and then it just kept growing and growing. But my feeling was always that, oh, you're doing this for selfish reasons because you can't edit your own art. Damn it! So you guys just can we do 6 minutes? Can we do 11? Hey, do it really have to be this many minutes per season? Can we be flexible here? Because obviously the first pilot has a lot of themes going on, even though it's just 44 minutes. So you guys just kept piling on, and I was getting increasingly nervous because I always also knew that, you know, we want images to this, and this is not a 45-minute product anymore. Someone will have to make all that video editing.
Haley, I'm sorry, Haley.
Like I watched Suicide Squad last night, which was 144 minutes, and it's kind of weird thinking that the musical journey is the same length. So, the movie that I watched last night is like the same length as the one that I edited for Ninjago. I mean, it took on average, say like a season is approximately 10 to 11 minutes long. It's about roughly 10 hours of work per season. And if you put that together, and season 11 counts as 2 because there was 10-minute segments for Secrets of Forbidden Spinjitzu, the fire chapter, and then the ice chapter. So you put all together, it was like maybe 15 seasons times 10 hours each. It was, but it was fun. It was really good going through, and like sometimes I had to do research, for the newer seasons to make sure I get the themes right. But it was definitely an endeavor.
Research. That was watching them, which.
Oh,
she was real upset to do that research. It's like, we gotta watch Ninjago. Oh, man.
So depressed.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's the life of an artist doing taxes, though. Everything's for research.
Everything's research.
More or
right?
less.
But it was a lot of fun. It was like, discovering things that I hadn't heard the first time. The earlier seasons, it's music that I've heard over and over and over and over and over and over again because I love it so much, and so that stuff came easy. But then I would be in season 11 and hearing these tracks over and over again as I'm editing them, catching different nuances. It's truly, truly artful. So.
Yeah, and I mean, even I was surprised when I listened to some of it because it's always been in the background. I've had more often than not, I've had the luxury of getting the soundtracks in their raw form. So I actually have many, many more hours of Ninjago music lying around that hasn't been released. So I have like the bulk of it. But the way I've listened to it mostly has also been like behind clashing swords and people screaming and people talking.
Mm-hmm.
So just having that brought up to the foreground, but still have an image that kind of accentuates that was really, really awesome. And everyone just piled into it because I don't know if that was not my intention that you guys, Vincent, and Jake. See, now I just did it. Vincent,
Yeah, you jinxed yourself. You jinxed yourself.
Vincent and Jake.
We were talking about this earlier.
Where is he?
We're getting our names confused.
You need to change the names. Yeah.
I'm
So
Kramer.
you guys.
That's Vincent.
On my end, you just look like you're pointing at LJ.
Where are we?
Right. I look like a fool now.
It's all good.
You guys jumped in on the approval on the editing process as well, which I didn't think that you wanted to do or needed to do. But it was whenever Haley sent out, like, here's another 45 minutes of music, then everyone watched it and everyone threw in their notes. And I think we did like 3 or 4 edits on each season.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you guys could catch stuff that I couldn't. I was more like about the rhythm, whereas you was like, oh, this particular note needs to go with this particular image, or I'll rip your head off.
It was so encouraging to send off footage and then have feedback come so quickly, and also you all cared so much about, especially for Tommy, like this one frame needs to be moved like in this direction. The fact that you have that much care for this is it warms my heart. And I'm like, these are people that I'm so glad that work on the series, because that's how much they care. If I miss a cue, Michael or Jay is like, this is great, but can you add the postman here because this is the postman cue. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll stick him in and whatnot. So it was so encouraging.
That's a very nice way of saying it, because when I get a ton of notes, I'm just like, really? Okay.
Yeah. No, we're so glad your heart was warm, and not to take anything away from that, but I mean, to him and me, giving notes is like breathing. But you're in terms of his. I mean, yeah, like we give notes all the time. We receive notes all the time, and so yeah, the specificity of the language, but and also, and by the way, lest anybody think there was a huge pile of notes, there actually never was. So for said 45-minute chunk, we may have said like maximum 3 things, 5 things, whatever. Which, I mean, if you think about the hundreds of shots and the hundreds of transitions and the more hundreds of combinations of music and images, the fact that we even had the gall to say 3 to 5 things about it is just a testimony to the extraordinary work that was done.
Haley nailed it.
A lot of it was timing, you know. It's a little bit off beat. I'm like, I got you. I'm gonna slow this down just a tad so it's on the beat. So I mean that's just something that I practice is, you know, I like stuff on the beat because it just feels nice, and especially since it's only music, you don't have dialogue to kind of hide the beats in the music. So if it's off beat, like if a shot changes or like, you know, a punch doesn't land and it's like just a little off, then it feels weird. And that, I mean, that was also probably another big issue was the talking head syndrome, which Tommy talked a lot about, or noted that with Ninjago, a lot of it is dialogue. You know, once you actually sit and you watch the action, especially in the 22-minute episodes, there's a lot of talking and not really a lot of action. And we didn't want to really put the talk into musical journey because and there's music over it, it just feels weird.
Oh my gosh,
So
that threw me for a second, Haley. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
that was pretty odd. I thought your audio cut out. Hold on.
It's really strange.
That's very strange.
No,
So
I didn't anticipate that. I don't think, I'm not sure if anybody else did, but yeah, when I first saw that cut, I was like, oh boy, Haley has a ton of work cut out for her to try to cut around this. Yeah, these talking heads.
So that was I think, you know, there's just a couple instances throughout the edits that, you know, Cole's burst is the first that comes to mind. You know, his whole burst, like him building up to him powering up, is just him and the Skull Sorcerer having a discussion. And I'm like, it's great music. I mean, it's beautiful, but they're just talking and we're not going to hear it. So what can we do? And so I put in the scene in the heart of the mountain just to kind of, you know, it fits for that moment because it has I call it the hero theme or the overture for Ninjago and whatnot. So it matches what's happening with Cole or whatever. So it's finding like a solution to not having people talk. So
these I actually think these creative roadblocks, and this is what I love about the creative process, is that I think these were some of the most brilliant things that you did in the edits, because you had to find alternate solutions, and sometimes the things that you came up with were like extraordinarily brilliant. Like what was it, the was it the Hands of Times where you did I forget which part you did, like a flashback within a flashback, or it was oh gosh, I'm misremembering now. But there was what the talking heads, what it forced you to do was to find like connections within the story that weren't necessarily touching each other like chronologically. You had to pull like from other parts of the season, and because of that, like watching the whole journey all the way through, you get like a different perspective of the whole journey and the whole of the season because of the way that the footage is now, you know, mashed together. It's really interesting what you did.
Yeah, you did the same thing with Akita in the ice chapter.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Since Akita's theme came like twice.
Stopping up going on all of a sudden, and then on with the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think when I received the music from you all, I had to decide when I listened to it, is this someone's theme for a person? Is it an event? Or is this kind of a location? You know, tournament elements, you get, you know, the tournament that's going on, which is, you know, more like a montage. With Misako, that's a theme, so it's mostly a spotlight on her. And then there's an event like Zane's Sacrifice. The events, I usually just plop it in there, match it up with the music, and then I listen and watch to make sure it's lined up, maybe make a few tweaks. But those ones I don't touch because I'm like, it's literally written for this moment. It's already out there. Sometimes there's talking heads, but there's nothing really I can do about that. It's a big moment. You can hear it in your head a lot. Like I can just hear, it's not about numbers even in the midst of this event. But yeah, doing that for every.
What was it? The Zane's memory switch, where it goes into his flashback, and then you do like a recap of.
For that one, I actually remember way back in like probably 2013, 2014 when I started editing, I wanted to make a compilation of all the ninja reaching their true potentials using the True Potential soundtrack, because you use the same soundtrack for all of their big moments, which I thought was really clever. I never did it, unfortunately, but this gave me the chance to, revisit that idea so that it's like it's not, chronologically how they reach their true potentials. It's not really in order, but it fits. Like you get all these different moments of them like building up to it. You get to see in Zane's flashback music kind of the beats that lead up to them reaching their true potential. And so that's how it, like that area flows together.
Right, that's so meta. It's like we're not going through Zane's memories, we're going through our memories of the show itself.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, so good.
Mm-hmm. It's yeah, and then you get like certain events like Taking the Bait for season 1, where it's like the Great Devourer track, and I have to fit the 22-minute episode in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. And I remember having the most fun with like the whole Devourer versus the Bounty, and like I'm like, this is great, huge chase music, this is really epic. And then we get to like this flourish of the overture, a very heroic overture, and I'm still on like Devour versus the Bounty, and I'm like, there's no heroic moment in this fight. They lose. It is sad. The Bounty is destroyed. And I'm like,
what are you talking about? The community loves bounty destructions. It's heroic in a sense. It's great.
Bounty's the real hero.
So it's like, I've got to go so much faster. So I had to go back and trim, so I can match that heroic moment to when they, pin the Devourer on the head with the flute and with the ultrasonic radar. So I had to move fast. And that was the first.
That's my favorite edit of the entire thing. Is actually when they're battling the Devourer in the scrapyard, and Smash Zane looks up and they shoot the flute, and then it cuts to the Devourer going towards the city. It was just like, holy shit, this is so dynamic. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Now, and this is actually a question I have, because the Taking the Bait track is live. That was recorded live. And so my question for that is, how did that happen? Number one. Number two, can we get more? Can you do more live?
Yeah.
That was I was recording another film, and we had some like extra recording time in the session, and I was like, what the heck, let's do it, because just love that track. So orchestrated it out and had it recorded. So yeah, that was just kind of a one-off. Did that just out of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ninjago International Tour win.
Let's do the musical journey, but live, right?
Yes.
Tommy needs to like acquire some serious blackmail material within the Lego Corporation in order to procure those amount of funds.
Mm-hmm. But like, so you chose Taking the Bait. So I guess a question for you both is, if you could choose, even for Tommy, if you could choose like 2 or 3 tracks to perform live off the top of your head, which ones would you pick? And it could be from the musical journey, or it doesn't have to be. It could even be from Seabound. But
yeah, I mean, I think yeah. Go for it, Tommy.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I just love like the Falcon theme. When I was saying follow the Falcon, and then there's 2 tracks from Secrets of the Forbidden Fujitsu. I don't know. On my hard drive, they're called Twice as Stubborn. So that's when Lloyd repairs the mech in the ice cave, and then there's Pecking Order, which is Zane against the bird. Lloyd against the bird, also in the ice realm with Akita. Those are like, I listen to those all the time.
They are incredibly hype moments. Yeah, for sure. was one of my favorite sequences of the musical journey was that actually. I remember you were very excited about like the action montage.
Oh yeah, when I got the mech montage, I was like, I'm not just gonna have like him standing up for that big moment. It's gonna be a mech montage for when the beat drops. So
Yeah.
That was so much fun.
Jay on that one. You even put the pose on.
Yeah, that was yeah. That was epic. I mean, the story of the Huh is like a story all on its own. But I mean, I'm sure you guys know that's like and now that's like the sound of the toy too. Anytime there's a Ninjago toy, Huh. I don't know.
It's iconic. Yeah.
All you need is something little. All you need is something little and simple. But yeah, no, it's very, it's obviously a huge undertaking. But you know, kind of going back to the idea of, you know, how are we going to tell? It's interesting because you have like you said, like the meta, like the total 10-year journey, but then you also have, it's like you have a journey within a piece. And this is like talking about like how we're editing the music. You know, you have a journey within a piece. Each piece has to make sense within itself. Then you have to have the overall flow of the season. It has to flow musically, but then it also has to encapsulate the story of the season appropriately. And then you know, it has to work season to season. It has to work throughout the entire thing. You know, so we had a pretty clearly defined set of parameters. We had our own kind of lingo that we would use with one another in terms of how to organize these things. We had things like characters. We had things like, you know, suites. We had things like, you know, big moments, kind of like you said. And Haley, obviously, as an artist, as an editor, you discerned those things right away. That was another one of the very surprising things about how quickly you got it. How quickly you guys, is like, you know, the first thing, it's like, oh, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be just already. Wow. I guess this isn't going to be that hard. I mean, hard to evaluate, not hard to do. I mean, it is going to be hard to do. It's not going to be hard to evaluate. Just because you got it right away.
Definitely challenges. You know, I still remember one of my biggest challenges was an out of order sequence, just because it sounded fine musically, but then I'm like trying to figure out, okay, so we have this track where Garmadon sacrifices himself in Tournament Elements.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And so he gets sacrificed. And then following that is Lloyd like having his big emotional track, which is in the TV show is before that, because he's like upset that Garmadon is going to do it. He like throws the book down and jumps off, and then he has this flashback sequence. And then he decides to come back up on the boat and be the one to banish him. Well, it was reversed in Musical Journey, so I had to figure out how to cut it so that it looked like Lloyd like was there the whole time, and then at the very end like dropped the book and pieced out for his big emotional bit, and then immediately was back on the boat. Because when the snake, like the serpentine, came out to like bless him, so he's just back in the spot with like just getting those in order, just, you know, because you want it to make sense. The music makes sense. You want the visuals to make sense so that it feels good in your brain as you watch it. That was like, I think, one of the hardest moments.
I'll take ownership of that one. That's my bad. I was
Come on,
like,
Michael.
organizing this, and I was like, oh man, this just flows way much, so much better, way better musically. It doesn't make sense, but we gotta do it. And Jay was like, "Are you sure? This doesn't make any sense." I was like, "I know, but it just feels right."
I mean, it makes sense for you guys. Yeah. Like that's your priority is, you know, the musical flow. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was always that was always Tommy's priority too.
Yeah.
You know, we would occasionally ask him. It's like, you know, how about this or how about this? And he says the main thing is it has to be a listening experience. Because again, the intention was for people to build their 10th anniversary sets while listening to this music and reminiscing and getting all the joy, you know, coming back. So you know, from the very beginning, you know, we tried to stay true to that intention. You know, just kind of bringing it full circle to like the Legos themselves.
Absolutely.
I will say it's served another purpose. In addition to being really good to listen to while you build Ninjago sets. Come to find out, it's really good for road trips. It serves a very good because it takes a normal road trip, just driving down the interstate. Oh my gosh, whoa, everything's so epic. Okay, I've got my hands on the wheel. Yeah, everything's going really well. Oh, look at that car. Whoa. It's really good for that.
My
I've
hour
listened
and
to
a
it
half.
on the train a lot.
For sure.
Hour and a half.
As well, like the world needs this drawing is what you feel like when you got that music booming.
One of the really unique challenges about this project, I mean, I've never done anything like this length where, it's one continuous thing, right? When you listen to it, it flows. It's like when you start the journey, it's like you're dropped into a river and you're just carried along, right? So like all the transitions had to flow from one thing to the next, 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 to the next. Obviously from season to season, there's a little bit of a breath, but within a whole chunk of music for a season, it needed to be continuous. And if there was like an awkward key change or something like that, or even like pacing wise, if it didn't feel right, sometimes we actually went back and like changed the keys of particular tracks, or re-edited material, or redid things specifically so that it would work for this new compilation. It was like the biggest musical jigsaw puzzle that you can think of. It was crazy.
I actually
And
have a question about that.
maybe we should talk a bit about like how it was divided, because that was not my original pitch either. Like Haley kind of put her foot down and says, "No, it needs to be these chunks." Like,
Wow. Somebody just buzzed like that.
Bruh.
I don't remember specifically which chunks I had made, but
It
my
was
concern I think was more like, oh, we need 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. But that's not what it turned out to be, because Haley felt that there's these seasons belong together and these seasons belong together. Like
it was the season in question was rebooted. You originally put rebooted with the pilot season 1 and season 2. And I was like, that could work, but I feel like the end of season 2 is such a dramatic finish that is a great stopping point musically, because rebooted just kind of comes in and Zayn's sad, or his big moment is very sad, but it leads into Turn of Elements. Like it's a continuation of that of his kind of journey goes into that as well. So I figured the end of season 2 is a good stopping point, and then the next saga, which is season 3, just Hands of Time, March of the Oni, or the Oni trilogy is what we call it, is another great chunk, because that just, like, even with music, it's from start to finish, it has themes that just reside within that that 3-season series, and then the new stuff 11 onwards. So that's what I originally pitched, instead of let's have everything equally 30 minutes and be nice and nice and organized and perfect, and Lego's like, yeah, this is great. It's like, no, it has to be in chunks, like Ninjago, like the chunks of Ninjago. So that's my apologies right there.
The original intention wasn't either that it would be released in those 4 chunks. It was like, originally it was like, oh, we'll drop the whole thing at once. But obviously that would also been quite a lot of editing work, and we really got a late start on this, because I kept kind of getting the budget and then losing the budget and getting the budget, and I got some people involved, like, oh, let's get Pamela Keller on as a producer. I talked to these guys over here, but like the money was there, but it wasn't there, so we were kind of in limbo for a few months until we kind of got our start. And I think I could probably find that in emails, but it was relatively late, and it was unrealistic that we would have everything ready for the actual anniversary. So that's how the idea about, okay, let's do it in installments, and then let's do 4 of them, and then like the big chunk at the end where it's like here it is. Now you can press play and just sit back for 2 hours and 46 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also want to give a huge shout out to Jesse Nelson, who helped us edit and get through this beast. Jesse's been helping on Ninjago, editing and writing additional music for years and years now. She's an incredible composer, and she jumped in and helped us get through this really tough deadline. And you know, she knows this music, you know, better than anyone besides Jay and I. So she was incredible, and another incredible mind to help sift through all these themes. So kudos to her.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jesse was incredibly helpful. And then also she even had help. So a couple more shout outs in the editing department, Sarah Vershovsky, hope I pronounced that right, and Adam Dibb. And then all of this was mastered post haste by Mike Buska, who's an awesome mastering engineer who also mastered. He also mastered. I mean, he's our guy now. He's our guy. So he did they just released a 10th anniversary soundtrack. They had some score tracks onto kind of the Folds 10th anniversary thing that they just came out with, I think, a month ago for LegoCon. And so, and Mike, we hope to work with them for other soundtrack projects going forward. But yeah, the whole thing about deadlines and chunks, and it was kind of like a multiple times a week ritual of like emailing people and like, okay, what do we think for deadline for this chunk? What do we do? It's like, what exactly do our people think? And there are just so many, people to communicate with, and we wanted to make sure we were being transparent and realistic and as excellent as we could be in our stuff. Plus, it was right around Christmas time and New Year's, and especially in LA, everything was locked down, and like the virus numbers were just so huge. And so there, when you look back on your life for like Christmas memories, this will be the quarantine Christmas with the Ninjago musical journey.
It's a unique one, at least.
Christmas inside Ninjago.
So what medals do all the editing team get?
They're all gold medals.
They're all,
They were.
So the question with that process is, do you two have a favorite 10-minute chunk from the seasons, and then what was the most challenging one, would you say, in the process of creating it? Like, the good memories are like, oh man, I love this season, it's nice to revisit this and create this journey, and then which one's like, I just can't get it to work no matter which way I put it together?
So, gosh, it's all like a blur now. But Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but like Ice and Shintaro, I remember those being like, how the heck are we gonna whittle this down? It just was like too much music.
Yeah, it's funny. Often the ones, I mean, because it's interesting because you guys, you've talked to us before. Kind of our MO is that we did all the pilots. Everything in the pilots was brand new, and then everything in the subsequent season was some new and then some restemmed and repurposed and re-embellished or rewrought or reused in some way, and then every season, every time there's a reason, and there are millions of reasons to do something new for each scene, we do it. So there are dramatic reasons to do it. It's like we literally don't have anything even remotely close to this. There's character reasons. This is a new character. There's audience like heart reasons. It's like this is such an important moment for the show. We want to give it like so much attention, and a lot of it is like sort of environmental. For instance, it's like we've never gone underwater before. So what does underwater music sound like? So then that's a whole nother thing. Like Shintaro was one of the most challenging things because it's this all new place. It's this all new underground, world, and same thing with the Never Realm. And so a lot of those seasons and stuff just out of necessity required so much new music. So while we take the exact same amount of care each season to write the new material, to write the new themes, and invest in the new characters, the new story elements and stuff. Just certain seasons have a larger library than others, just because of their setting and their plot needs. So what he was saying is that for instance, Ice and Shintaro, it wasn't necessarily that we liked or disliked those seasons more so than the others. It just happened to be that there was so much material, there was so much music. I mean, often it's kind of like, you know, how do you decide between this stuff? I mean, the seasons, like for instance, season 7 or season realistic, or like March of the Oni, for instance. I mean, that was a shorter season, so that was easier. But the seasons in which we sort of like, you know, you had the clear of an idea we had of like what we definitely had to use and when and why, the easier time we had with it. And then it was those things where, for instance, like Shintaro, it's like we call it Shintaro, you guys call it Master of the Mountain. But we had so much to you, and it was so vast too. It's like we had the lowly Upley, you had that funny He-Man flashback episode, you had the Skull Sorcerer, you had Colin, you had
the whole world.
Yeah, and so it's like, how do you consolidate that while still giving appropriate enough attention to the heart, no pun intended, of the story, which is the Master of Earth theme, the Cole and Lily, the Cole family theme. So, so yeah, that was definitely tough. And then it's like, how do you make it economical? And so yeah, it's definitely was a challenge for us. It was a challenge for our editors, but yeah, you know, we know what did make it easier is we've been doing this whole thing for so long. It's pretty easy for us to kind of be objective about stuff. It's like, you know, we love this piece, we love it as music, but it's probably not going to fit story wise, so we gotta axe it. You know, we you know, you have to be brutal with your own work, but we expected it to hurt a lot more, the brutality, but it wasn't so bad.
That's good.
I mean, if you guys need a hand axing it, I can let you borrow some.
Then you had the opposite problem with Skybound.
Yeah, Skybound. That goes to the journey with Skybound, because I know a couple of fans were like, "Wow, you know, all the seasons are 10 minutes long, and then Skybound is around 6." Mm. So what's this? If you want to talk the story of Skybound,
that'd be fun.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. Well, most people probably know that the season 6 music budget was much proposed to be much lower, and it may have even been music and sound design, because I know that during the Jam Will Film era, all that stuff was packaged together. We don't know the details, and there are no real hard feelings on the matter. I mean, it's good that we don't know the details, but the long and the short of it was there was not a sufficient budget for new music, and so it's like it was going to be editing only, and which already was a lot of work, and was probably in all, enough time has passed that we can say they still got a really good deal out of it, just for editing. So then we made a couple of episodes, and then people came back and they're like, man, I really wish Nauticon had a theme. Like, we like this music, but we really wish this season had something special. And then I'm sure Tommy was like, "That's why you pay for music." So anyway, so it's it was this good learning experience, I'm sure, for everybody. That sort of like, it was this self-authenticating thing of like, well, this is why you have a music budget and all that stuff. So this is why you hire composers and everything. So it was just a good sort of like, sort of system check, I guess. So then they managed to, and again, no hard feelings. I'm sure there were good reasons for everything. We're business owners ourselves. Believe me, we understand. So finally they managed to get a little something together. They're like, okay, just write like a piece for Nauticon. Write a Nauticon suite that's like all the different moods, like his little genie appearing thing, and his conniving and scheming and seducing, and then the wishes and the temptations, and then the action and all that stuff. So we did a Nauticon suite, and I'm sure you guys have heard that. And then so then when it came to the musical journey, it's like, all right, we got like a little under 3 minutes for season 6, and that's pretty much
3 minutes. And then Tommy's
that's
no,
it.
we need more. And we're like, that's all there is, Tommy.
My concern was that some people love Skybound. Well, that's people's favorite season. And
They're
some people
cool.
would be
Yeah.
really wrong if that segment for Skybound was so short. So how did we stretch that out was kind of the challenge
Yeah, so
there.
we tried to find some significant pieces that we reused for editing that felt like that were attached to big moments within the season. So we used that to supplement that chunk.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
oh, please go ahead.
I was gonna say like it was a challenge for sure editing wise, but it was also more fun to take apart Skybound and be like, okay, so this isn't gonna be the traditional, musical journey of here's an event, we have a character, but the character has to be like very expansive. It can't be like a moment for the character. And that's what I made the decision, we get the 3 chunks, Nauticon suite, obviously going to be Nauticon throughout his moods, which is what you were saying, which was really weird hearing that, because that's what I did for the editing. And then we have the pirates.
Yes.
So I did a little pirate suite, which was Tyler's favorite.
I love him.
All the different characters there. And then the last segment, which you used a couple of times in Skybound. I don't even know what season of Origin that track is from, but I transformed that into a kind of J suite. Like we see the ninja, try to save the day, and then it eventually evolves into Jay becoming the hero, and then it ends with Nia dead, which is kind of a cliffhanger. But it's like, hey, watch Skybound to see what happens next. It wasn't like the happy ending that most of the other seasons were, but it was a way to kind of shrink it down in like a bite-sized Skybound piece.
Yeah.
In the end, I think we're grateful that the whole Skybound season thing happened with the music, because in a way I think it may have been like a little like moment for Lego to see what the music to see what the show was like without original music. So it was good to see the value of it going forward. So it was good.
Yeah, I saw Tommy smiling down there when you heard the story.
I'll make it out like, it was deliberate sabotage, so we would have a better working relationship going forward.
All good in the end.
I love it. But practically speaking, the silver lining is that sort of padding the running time of Skybound was just a nice practical opportunity for us to present music that was on the cutting room floor for previous seasons. So Kramer, correct me if I'm wrong, but we used the pirate stuff from season 2, Captain Soto and the pirates.
Yep.
And then did we end with opening the cursed realm?
Yep.
We did. Okay, yeah. So that
battle with Chen, yep.
Yeah. So it was opening the cursed realm. That's Garmadon versus Klaus, right?
Or sorry, with Klaus. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
And so so Haley, to answer your question, that is the moment of origin.
Wow.
of that. But yeah, season 4 had a ton of epic sort of showdown type tracks that we would have loved to use.
Mhm.
Same thing with season 8, season 9. Yeah, we just had a lot of stuff. Again, this is just such a, I don't want to say bloated, I don't want to say over anything, because just it's you eat or you create the Ninjago elephant one little bit at a time. I mean, in our opinion, the Ninjago score is no bigger and no smaller than it needs to be. We try to be very faithful to the show, and if it seems like it's a ton of stuff, well, that's because it's a ton of show, and it's a ton of character, and it's a ton of story, and it's a ton of good.
Absolutely. When I was talking to my family about what I was doing, my family has a hate-love relationship with me being a Ninjago fan. But when I was telling them about this project, they were very confused. They're like, so it's the soundtrack of Ninjago. Like, you're making it for the soundtrack. And I'm like, yeah, how when you watch a TV show, there's music behind it. They're like, it's really interesting to do it for Ninjago. And I say this to everyone. I was like, well, this is just my personal opinion. Ninjago soundtrack is like competitive with like Star Wars when it comes to like how much care goes into it, like the impact it has on the series. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, Zane's theme which was introduced in 2011, is still being like, messed around with in 2020.
It's still
or
referred to
2019.
because it created a lasting impression.
Which you
Yeah.
don't see that in other shows, like even like adult shows. Just that you have that care for that. And I mean, like, well, that's the reason why they're making the musical journey, is because you have like this visual novel and then this audio novel where you can hear these themes over and over and over again. I know from many Ninjago fans, when you're listening to a track and then the overture just comes out of left field, like it's like, oh yes, this is a Ninjago theme, here we go. Like it's a power up moment.
It heightens the emotional connection, and I think people who don't watch, or people like your family, who to them it's probably like, what cartoon would benefit from this supposed great soundtrack? It's like, well, try removing it. Would the emotional moments hit as high? No, they bolster the connection.
But what you're talking to there, Haley, is also, one thing I take some pride in was when we did the transition to Wild Brain. It was very important for me, like, okay, what consistency do we need to carry over to this new production? And there was definitely these guys where it's like, there's such a back catalog, and they have provided nothing but greatness. So why would we even want to challenge that? Because it has such a value for the show, and it does elevate it to, it's a cartoon show, it's for kids, but with that score, it just becomes something greater. So yeah, we kept these guys on for a little while longer, and I guess you guys and Jepper and myself are the 4 people that's been working on the show for all episodes, I guess.
Yeah, besides the voice actors.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
That goes without saying.
Okay, right? So
yeah.
But I mean, yeah. To us, that's an insane compliment. Like when people ask us about Ninjago and our lives, and they say, well, the show's gone through all these changes and stuff, and some people aren't working on it anymore. Like, who's still working on it? It's like, well, there's us, there's the characters' voices, and there's a guy at the top, and it's there's the music director and
Basically
Fold.
it.
And it's like, I don't know, so that's probably the best compliment we could get, is that our work is seen as essential in terms of the essence, of Ninjago in the same grouping as the way the characters, I mean, the voices that breathe life into the characters. That's what we try to do, and we hope we do it well, and again, whatever the future of Ninjago holds, in whatever form it takes and stuff, we want to be in it till the bitter end. Prequels, or Wu's tales of old Ninjago, or whatever next generation, or whatever it is. It's like, our version of Mandalorian, or our version of The Hobbit, or our version of
Stuff.
that Dareth spin-off series that we're definitely working on.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Jarrett suite.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that is something. Hold on, just to be, hold on, because it was a while ago, and it was clearly a lot of music. The Dareth stuff is in the season 2 part of the musical journey, right?
It is.
We
Yes.
have Dareth.
Best part.
Okay.
Dareth Misako.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
He's a legend.
We have. I have
went there.
such a loving relationship with Dareth. I mean, it is.
Derek.
It goes.
We
deep.
do as well.
It goes deep.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. We love Dareth. I mean, and I don't know. It's this is probably another conversation for another podcast and stuff. But I mean, and I'm sure Tommy has so many stories like we do, or Yepe, or the voice actors, or anybody who's been on this journey for as long as we have, is that Ninjago is so intertwined with your own autobiography. So everybody, you can pinpoint a certain episode and coincided with, like, okay, I was doing this episode when I got married, or I was doing this episode right before or during the birth of my first child, or I was doing this episode when some tragedy happened. I was doing, like, this was the last episode we did before everything locked down. This was the first episode, and like, it goes on and on and on and on. But there's such a Yeah, so like with Dareth too, not only do I think he's hilarious, and I will fight to the death anybody that doesn't think he's funny every time
Wow.
with whatever he says ever.
One of
Wow.
them's in this.
I will go to the match. The Dareth Hill is something that I will die on.
I got some unfortunate news. So we like to consider ourselves pretty big Dareth fans, except
Yes.
for our very own Sensei Wolf, who is not a Dareth fan, even though we've been trying desperately to convert her.
True.
See, I don't know. When I started watching Ninjago, it was in season 2. So like in my brain, I thought he was Kai's dad.
What?
How?
It's cooler.
I didn't
Cooler
watch
than
it.
Kai's
I
dad,
just,
but, you
I
know.
just, I remember watching like the last voyage when they're sending them off, and all the ninja were like either with their parents or like Zay with his fans, and then there was Kai and Mia with Dareth, and I was just like, it's their dad.
It's the chest hair. It's the chest hair, right? Yeah.
It's the chest hair and the attitude. Like it was those two together. I was like, it's gotta be,
Dareth and
That's
Kai
great.
do have like similar vibes.
So. I think after that, like my brain was just like, he's not super cool, but he's cool. I mean, he's definitely grown. Like I liked him in Prime Empire and whatnot.
Oh, did
So
Did
his like 2 minutes in Prime Empire, but he got
No,
gets-
but seriously, what we were saying earlier, it's not lost on us. The gift of this show is not only for our careers, our livelihood, but just the chance of a composer to be able to work on something that lasts for this long, to have a canvas this big is so it's a gift. It does not happen that often to that many people. To be able to write something, a theme, 10 years ago, and still be using it and still have the opportunity to find different ways and to be challenged to find different ways to dress it up and to spin it and find unique, to breathe new life into it. That is such a gift. And we're so grateful for it. This show has been just like a thing that dropped from the heavens into Jay and I's lap. Yeah, it's amazing.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, it's kind of like the proverbial like baby on the doorstep, and it turns out to be like a superhuman baby that you're just so blessed to be raising.
Ninjago is a superhuman baby.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
superhuman baby.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I mean, think of the most sort of high-minded composer dreams that a person can have when they're young about writing music that somehow impacts people in a positive way, writing music that has meaning and everybody wants to do that. But then the opportunity and the audience connection and the worldwide distribution, it's like everybody wants to make an impact, almost nobody can. For various reasons,
A
you
lot
need a
of things
team.
would have to
You need
line
a
up.
exactly, and so to be this show is that for us and so much more. And it's so weird because as far as composers go, we're still relatively young. It's like we've already checked like all the boxes. It's like everything we wanted to do with our lives and music, and in terms of like check. It's like this. We've been able to do that, and we still just kind of can't believe it. I mean, the only thing we could do, and we felt this way from the very beginning. And I think enough time has passed that we can admit it's like we felt amazingly underqualified to be doing this at the very
Yes.
beginning. It was so we was this thing where kind of like the cartoon character that's like really small and puny, but then it's like he like puffs itself up so it appears to be like natural size for a few minutes before anybody notices something's wrong. Like that's what we did when we wrote the music for the pilot. And then people are like, "Oh, I can't like this," and it's like, "Oh, wait a second, we actually have to be that big all the time." And then it just kind of so we've always thought of this as a privilege that we are required to constantly live up to.
Yeah, and the impact, it blows my mind. I don't have a lot of opportunity to hang out with like younger fans of Ninjago. And I'm a new dad. I've got almost a 2-year-old, and we were hanging out in Northern California just a couple weeks ago, hanging out with family, and we were just out in an outdoor mall, and we were playing on this like little play structure, and there's these two twins. They were like maybe 6.5, barely 7, and we were just talking with their parents, and we kind of just were chatting, and it was mentioned, I write the music for Ninjago, and I don't know how we got on that subject. We're talking about shows we were watching, and the kids, the parents said, "Oh my God, the kids are super fans. You have to talk to them." So I went and talked to the twins, and they're like, "Wait, you wrote the theme?" And they sung back the Ninjago theme to me. It was like the most wild, surreal moment. These like 6-year-olds humming back. They like sang the whole theme. I was like, "Well, you know the whole theme." So that it was almost like an out of body experience. I was just like,
I can
wow,
imagine.
how
Yeah.
your little mind actually it got in there. Because we write all this music, and we know it's having an emotional impact somewhere in there, but we don't necessarily know like how much the kids
Right.
are absorbing of the music when they watch the show, and to have these twins sing back the Ninjago theme that Jay and I wrote was just wild.
I can
It
imagine.
was so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like
yeah. That's the thing, especially because people are always having more kids, and so you're having this new generation fall in love with Ninjago, and it's I'll try to keep names out of this for confidentiality and stuff. But one of the guys that's on my own internal team that I've worked with on Ninjago for the past couple of years, he's doing kind of like a big project with a big client, like a big celebrity that everybody in his own world like knows who that is. And so he gets invited to his house, and it's probably this big mansion, and he knows like this intimidating, because he's like a younger guy, and this is like this old established like super famous dude. And he walks in the house, and there's an episode of Prime Empire playing because this big shot's 7-year-old son is watching it, and he's telling me it's like this guy's house is like a shrine to Ninjago. And I actually got to say to this hotshot client that I'm trying to work with, it's like, "Oh, that episode that your son is that's playing in your house, I worked on that episode." And so all of a sudden, and so I said, "My friend, you have understood one of the world's deepest truths. Ninjago is the great equalizer of all people."
I'm gonna quote that, and I'm gonna send that to my family.
Oh
The
my
great
gosh.
equalizer of all people.
Ah,
That's funny.
I mean, on my end, I've been editing Ninjago stuff for years now, but never would I ever imagine working with the people who made it happen. Communicating with the composers while editing to their music literally blew my mind. Like, I'll edit Ninjago footage all day, any day. It's like, I love it. But when I ship it off and I get the composers to and of course Tommy to comment on it, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. So that was a dream come true on my end. So, and I'm so blessed and so thankful that for you, especially Tommy, for picking me out and letting me have the honor to do this.
And kudos to Tommy for getting the whole Ninjago fan community involved. I mean, fan culture is a tricky thing these days, and Tommy, God bless you for doing all you do to really reach out and make the Ninjago community feel important and special, and feel like they have a place and a voice. So yeah, kudos to you, man.
It kind of dawned me at Comic-Con in 2016, the one where we were there together. Like, that was the moment where I kind of realized, because I met some people there that like, oh, this thing has been around long enough that these kids that saw it when they were that age has grown up with it and are still watching it. So there's really something about like the longevity of things where where we never got to with Legends of Chima or Nexo Knights or something like that, where if you manage to be around long enough, then you get that fan culture, because people need to be a certain age before they start to communicate on social media and stuff like that, and that's where Ninjago got to. And so that's why I started engaging a bit back in 2016. And it's nothing is better than getting feedback on your work, whether that's good or bad. It's something that you can use to kind of build the next thing on.
Mm-hmm.
LJ with the shifty eyes.
Don't look at me. No. I'm not the focal point here. You look away.
All right. So before we get to a couple of fan questions, we have a super chat from Spiang. Says, just gotta say that when everything started shutting down last year, seeing the Sons of Garmadon Hunted and March of the Oni soundtracks released on SoundCloud really brightened my days.
I remember that.
So
yeah,
that
was a good time.
Having music release is always a highlight for Ninjago fans. Either it be picking out, oh my goodness, we're listening to a track in Musical Journey that's unreleased. This is super cool. Cough, cough, cough. Unmasking Harumi. And just seeing, all these tracks drop, whether it be Prime Empire, Masters of the Mountain, always a bright day. I know the fans are holding their breath, waiting for the Island and Seabound tracks to drop for particular reasons.
What's the
particular
Island?
reasons?
What's
the island?
What's a Seabound? Listen, I live in the United States. These are foreign concepts to me.
Oh boy, that's the conversation for another day. Okay, I've got a few questions for y'all from the fans. The first one is a practical question for you guys from Sathasilis. In the ice chapter, what flute was used for the ice fishers or the village people, and for the opening and closing of the Neverrealm?
Yeah, so it's this guy here.
Oh boy, we're getting famous.
Oh yeah.
Kramer.
Yeah. And by the way, she's kind of the one leading the charge of they've. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there's a massive project, and now there's a website with examples and stuff. They've broken down all of the major musical material of the Ninjago soundtrack in like a systematic way. I've had some very, very enjoyable conversations with her and with some others. And
I haven't seen this. What is this?
It's really cool.
Remember, this is the thing I was telling you, that the people that are making the leitmotif catalog, and we've talked a couple times.
No, I don't remember.
Really? I invited you to it.
The 2-year-old, he doesn't remember anything.
Sorry. No. This is they have a website. It's called the Ninjago Leitmotif Catalog, and they've broken down all the main themes from every season and all of the kind of auxiliary themes, and it's really cool. So,
but they're also doing instruments too.
Not necessarily instruments, but like whenever they there's like a paragraph description of each theme, and often the instrumentation is discussed.
Oh, okay, yes.
But anyway, I mentioned that also because there was an inside joke within the question. She says the ice fishers or the village people, and you and I are the only ones in the world that call them that.
I didn't. It's like so. It's so synonymous. I didn't even like register it.
The village people.
One of the exactly, Tommy. One of the ways that we entertain ourselves. And it's only gotten worse since we become dads, because then dad jokes are just a way of life. We have the most fun, probably too much, but we don't care. Naming the cues. We name the cues, and we some of our favorite things have been naming them,
and they're often like really terrible puns.
Exactly, but it has to be the right kind of terrible. It either has to be good or so bad it's good, but it can't just be bad. It can't just be regular bad. And so, but then we have our own inside jokes for like the names of the characters and stuff. So yeah, the Ice Fishers became the Village People.
Brilliant.
And so anyway, but sorry, enough rambling. Back to the flute.
Back to the flute.
So no, this is a Native American flute. It's a bass flute, and I mean what I love about it is that it's so low that it has kind of like a wolfy sound. It's a
Oh, you know what? I think the sound has like a filter. It's
oh,
detecting that as enemy fire, so it's muting it.
we're not allowed to play music
So
via
weird.
Discord.
Darn.
Yeah.
I was blowing through it. I was not just mimicking it.
I'll put it in.
It's so strange.
Fair enough.
But it sounds like a wolf. So anyways, that's that flute.
Oh,
And that was for Akita, and then
Yes.
you used a different one for the Village People though, right? And Sorla?
Oh yeah. That was one of the higher native flutes. Yeah, I think it was this guy. Actually, I don't remember now. I'm pretty sure it was this guy. But it's a similar kind of thing, just a little bit higher.
all right.
Same vibe.
Very cool. Very cool.
Title here, I think from the island, called Catamaran Handstand. That's a tongue twister.
Handstand.
Did you remember some offhand? I know you have such a good memory. Do you remember some of the worst ones we've ever come up with?
Some of the worst names. Well, I mean, the worst of the worst ones you vetoed. You know, like I've had some just deplorable ones before, but we because sometimes we have a kind of a darker sense of humor. But I'm trying to think. Some of the worst names we've ever had are. Well, this is something I love because it's literally a quote from the show. Kramer hates it. It's called the city formerly known as the Lost City of Ouroboros. Back from season 1. Like he's still shaking his head. 10 years later, he still hates it. But I'm trying to think. There was one we did in Prime Empire. It's like a math pun. It's where Jay and Nia are like the only ones left in Prime Empire, and then Nia gets changed into an energy cube. She dies too many times. He says, "No, Nia, don't leave me. I love you," and all that stuff. So so we called we called it J plus Nia cubed equals sad.
Wow. Oh, this
So,
is
Amazing.
So,
So dumb.
I love it.
still a secret for the documentary. We played a lot of tracks from y'all, which is huge thanks for that. The cues were named there, so I'm like going through all of them and reading all the different names. I'm like, what the heck is this?
That is awesome.
You're peeking
What
into
are
the
some-
frightening inside look of Jay and I's brain.
Remember,
Seriously, it's a place you really don't want. I mean, we try to be. Oh, we did a thing. Okay, we did a thing with Bernie the Beetle at the beginning of the fire season. So we thought it'd be hilarious to name all our cues Beatles songs.
Oh my goodness.
So our cues are like the one where they're packing to go. The first cue is called Day Trippers. We did when it's like he's in the Beetle and like we called it Hold Me Tight. Where when they get him, we called it With a Little Help from My Friends. We did. I mean,
Right.
just you name it. We call it with the end. We did so many of these, but we did a lot of Beetle puns. The worst ones were probably the wolf puns for the ice season. So we did like Shadow of the Wolf, Hungry Like the Wolf, Duran Duran. We did like Wolf Gang, as in like Mozart, but it's like a gang of wolves.
Oh, so bad.
You guys have too much power.
I'm
Stop.
I'm just filing all of these away for future reference. I need these for inspiration.
I remember we did one, and like sometimes the people that are like helping us out, like they assume that we're not as stupid as we are. So we had one in season 8 called it was when the Sons of Garmadon were holding the gang captive when Lloyd and Harumi were in the Oni temple. And it was somebody mentioned it was like a belly button joke. It's like, Kilo, it's like that was a joke about how his biker vest was too small for him. And so it's like, oh, I'm staring at your navel, right?
I
So
remember
then,
that.
so then we name the cue naval negotiations. We're big on alliteration, as if you haven't noticed. So the cue is called naval negotiations. But then the person, I don't know, whoever actually spelled it and output the stems and stuff, they thought better of us than we actually are, and so they put NAVAL because they're on a ship.
Yep.
But it's like, nope,
Yeah.
nope, we're not that, we're not that. But I'm trying to think. Kramer, can you think of any other of our like worst of the worst?
Those are some of the highlights.
Here.
So what?
I got one for Prime Empire. A boy's best friend is his motherboard.
Oh yes!
Wow.
Yes! I remember that.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
You guys are
yeah.
you guys are wild.
Because it's like highbrow and lowbrow. It's like, you know, you got a classic line from Hitchcock and then just dumb it down as much as you can. But yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, you know, composing, you know, for media, the schedules, the deadlines, the pressure, you have to find ways to entertain yourself, even if it's something like this. So don't be too hard on us.
I'll do my best.
All right, one other question. If you can, like it's a pretty heavy question, but like try, you know, as much as you can shrink it down the answer.
You guys are
Jonathan Romano asks, as a composer myself, I would be interested to hear: is it all in the box, live sessions, or a mix? And then, what are the composer's favorite tools to work with? I think we know Michael's answer from the documentary. It's the 2 tools he buys per season. But other than that, what other stuff do you like to work with?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like live versus in the box, it's mostly in the box. You know, it's a lot of like every sample library there is out there we have and we use. But then we put a veneer on top. That's what I like to think of it. I come from me and my dad used to build furniture together. He's a big woodworker, and there's a technique where you know, you have like cheap wood on the bottom and then fancy wood on top of the veneer, and it kind of is the same thing with music where you have the samples underneath, and even if you just have like a few live instruments on top, it can fake it and you can really make the track come alive with just only a couple live tracks. So we try to put you know, as many just little live elements as we can on all of our music. And then in terms of tools, you know, Logic Pro, Jay and I both love working in Logic Pro, and use Pro Tools, and I use Melodyne a lot to fix all my terrible out of tune playing. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many different tools. It's easy these days. There's like the access to technology is easy. The trick is what you do with it.
Yeah, and I think just from a practical standpoint, you know, because we went to music school once upon a time, so we heard something about how like key centers have to work together or something like that. And so one of our favorite tools is called Sound Shifter. It's like the top of the line pitch shifting kind of software. So let's say we're putting different cues together. You probably noticed this in the musical journey. One of the cues, I believe, for Zane's funeral in season 3 was a half step, I believe, lower than it is in the episode. And the reason for that is because we needed the keys to work with what came before it and what came after. So there has to be flow. There has to be flow. So there's a rhyme and a reason for almost all of the keys that we choose. The tricky thing is that as the show is evolving and as we are evolving as composers, we often kind of go outside of the box more and more and more in terms of key centers, modulations, different things we can do with the music, especially given the various environments and stuff. I mean, you've had like more foreign territories, foreign to what we're used to in our normal language, like Shintaro or like the underwater, you know, kingdom. And so you're going to have more like elements of fantasy in that, and musically that carries a lot of history. There are certain musical keys and modes and chords, etc., that are more fantastical to our sensibilities, to our ears. And so, long story short, we do way more key changes now than we did 10 years ago. And in order to make all that work together, you gotta sometimes you gotta change keys after the cue's written.
A funny like side note, when we first started writing for the show, we only wrote in one key. It was the key of D, Hans Zimmer's favorite key, so that everything could work together. And we didn't write in any other key. We're like, this is our key because everything needs to work together, and that was it. It was just like, nope, can't do it. Can't use any other keys.
D for Dareth, even from the
That's
start.
right.
Exactly. Brilliant.
So, all right, and a final question. When making and this is from Master of Minifix on Twitter. When making a soundtrack for the show, what source material are you given for the scene, and how do you decide what instrument to use?
You wanna take this one? You want me to?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like source material, it's usually we get an early animatic, and Jay and I are brainstorming from the get-go. We usually do like a kind of a startup meeting, just like an initial story session of like what the overall vision of the season is. So we're already kind of thinking about where we are in this moment of the story long before this point. So when we actually get the animation for this scene, we'll get an animatic, so it's a rough version of the animation. And in terms of instrumentation, that's the other thing too that we do at the start of the season is that we think about what are our new environments, what are our new characters, and Jay and I do this thing we call it the deep dive, where we go down internet rabbit holes and figure out new instrumentation from around the world, and we get inspired by lots of different artists, and just try to find different toys to put in our sandbox. We like to call it the sandbox for that season. And then whenever we get to that scene, we figure out what toy works best in our sandbox for that moment, and then we just play. So that's the fun part of the show. What's important though is like setting up all of your toys in the sandbox beforehand, so that you don't have to get up out of the sandbox. You can just stay there and play. And that's the fun part of the first part of the season, where you just like are dreaming and looking around. Ooh, let's put this in the sandbox. That's crazy. Let's put this in the sandbox. And sometimes you grab things that don't belong. And it's you find happy accidents, so it's a good time.
Yeah, it was really it's pretty funny if we were thinking of like what has ended up on the cutting room floor musically for Ninjago. Like what was a character's instrument almost, or what was this key or this mode almost. There was a time when we were initially thinking Shintaro would be ripe with Greek influences. Of all things, because and again that changed when we started spotting, when we started talking to people, because again we didn't really have the full visuals of what this was. So like as we get more and more detailed information, things become more and more clear. But it's interesting because every once in a while you'll hear like an influence of a concept that we never end up really taking all of the way. So for instance, in the very, very first episode of Ninjago, there's like this sort of sneaking out at night, Cole and Vanya and everything, and you hear a little bit of a bouzouki, just a little bit of this little like plucked tremolo string instrument that never shows up again. And that's okay. But
You worked it in where you could. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and who knows?
All right,
who
for the
knows?
sandbox.
Exactly. I mean, it still worked. I mean, it's still, it's just that was the only time we could use it. But yeah. So that's fun times. And
I remember when you started talking about those Greek influences and stuff like that for Master of the Mountain, Shitaro, and I had the knowledge that we're very probably going underwater here in next season, so we might actually want to wait with some of that because we want that, you know. And I think I even showed you some of the early concept artwork. Even though we were doing Shintaro, we had some visuals from Seabound. So it was like, yeah, we will be going here. So whatever you feel fits with these images, don't do them right now because we're in Dungeons and Dragons mode.
Right.
So, all right. Well, that's the questions that we have, and we're good for musical journey. So this is probably where we're going to wrap up.
Awesome.
So
Thank you guys so much for having us. This was a great fun. Really great questions, and you guys are you're amazing for keeping this podcast going for as long as you have. It's incredible.
It is
one day at a time.
It's the internet's longest running Ninjago podcast, so
True enough.
tend to keep it around a little bit longer as long as, someone wants to. I don't know if that's pointing right.
You're pointing for me, like.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
There we go.
All the squares are messed up.
Yeah. like
Pointing in every direction.
On the stream, it should be pointing up. It's like as long as someone wants to and maybe gets on the Dareth bandwagon. I'm just saying.
Dareth is the key to Ninjago's success. If you can make him work, it'll stay popular forever.
I'm not so sure about that. I thought Master of the Mountain was pretty darn good.
Now just imagine, Master of the Brown Ninja Dojo, an entire season. An entire season.
I'm on board.
I'm on board. You know how some people thought Better Call Saul wouldn't work?
Right? Better Call Dareth. It's a great perfect. A Dareth musical journey afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
Man.
Yes. We should just do a lawyer show with Dareth then.
Yes.
Dareth would be the worst.
As long as you put Ronan in it. As long as you put Ronan in it, then we're good.
Ronan and Dareth.
All
right.
Oh, man.
Well, thank you both so much for being a part of this. Tommy, you too. Thank you all for joining on to talk about the musical journey. That deep dive into, the whirlwind that existed a couple months ago, the creative whirlwind, and that is very, very popular. And you can find Musical Journey on Lego's YouTube channel. The first episode that came out like 6 or 7 or 8 months ago at this point, maybe longer, has just hit 1 million views. So that's a huge hoopla to that. Keep watching. It's good to go back and listen and watch. And
Get the other ones up.
Get the other ones up there too. So,
For sure.
Well, yeah, thank you all so much for being a part of this.
Most
So-
definitely.
Everybody, stay safe.
Thank you guys.
Yes. All right.
Thank you guys. And keep it going. Keep it going. There's something about Ninjago that just makes you want to do it forever. So let's keep it going.
Absolutely. And we again we wait patiently for the release of new music. Specifically, well, we all know what scene we're thinking in our head. We all know this.
Anyone else?
This is the second time you mentioned this. I don't know specifically what you're talking about, but okay.
A tall glass of water.
Tall glass of water.
Okay, all right.
That's so why you said tall glass of water and you hold up a bottle of friggin' Aquafina. Okay, this is what a
Tall bottle of water.
Aquania. More
NINJAGOcast sponsored by Aquafina.
No, we're not. We are not. Absolutely not. All right, Sensei, just take us out.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today for NINJAGOcast. We'll catch you around in a few weeks for hopefully something fun and whatnot. Did I just mute myself?
No, you
I just muted myself.
You did
No,
not.
I did not. No, I totally thought I did. But we'll catch you around next time for more fun discussions. But until then, I've been Sensei Wolf.
I'm LJ.
I'm Mesa.
I'm Sakota.
And I hope you all have a very ninja day.
Woo!
This is when we usually play music, but
It's okay. Just give it a
we
little
have
bit.
people here.